Hi guys, welcome to week 3 of our class. In this particular video, I'm going to share with you some insights that I've seen from some of your work and also talk to you about the review of the literature, which is an important thing to accomplish when you are planning to do a research study. As a matter of fact, it's one of the first steps after you formulate, of course, your research questions and so on. But first, in general, I've been pleased with what you have turned in so far. I really appreciate some of the work that you guys put into it, and I know that you're working hard in order to understand the material in the chapters. I want to say that a lot of this material would be much easier to do in person, and that's why I'm trying to supplement my instruction with online videos. As I've said to you before, I'm a veteran of lots of different research studies, and sometimes what seems so easy to me is not so easy to you. So please be sure and ask me questions. You can text me. You can use Ask the Instructor. You can do any method that you want because I want everyone in this class to receive an A, but you've got to put in the work first in order to do that. Now back to the chapter on reviewing the literature. What is a review of the literature? It's going out there to see what's already been done on a particular problem or area of interest that you may have. And there are certain steps for conducting a review. The purpose of the review is to see what other people have said. Quite often, you might have an idea, but it's been so heavily researched that you wouldn't want to do that anymore. Or you might be doing groundbreaking research and be very limited in what you find in doing a literature review. But first things, regardless of whether it's a qualitative or quantitative study, is to figure out some keywords that are associated with what you want to look up and use those keywords to search various databases that are available to you. When I did my doctoral dissertation and other studies, my first year in the program, all we did was talk about going into the library and reviewing microfiches and so on. But then after that, everybody quickly transitioned to electronic databases in order to find their information. And I can say happily that when I was writing my doctoral dissertation and various other studies I've done since then, that I have never stepped foot into another library in order to accomplish that task. One of the things we really have to worry about is the quality of the sources that we want to use. You certainly don't want to use something that you find on some questionable sites on the internet. You're looking primarily for primary sources, and primary sources that are within 5 years or at the very furthest point 10 years of when they've been published. That gives them validity and credibility that the research is up to date. Sometimes you may find a source that is 50 years old that you could still use because it is such a landmark study that most researchers included in the review of the literature. The book mentions a literature matrix, and rather than attempting to explain one of those things to you on this screen, I invite you to just Google the term literature matrix. I never used a literature matrix. What I did when I was doing my various research studies is I would categorize them under the certain keywords and place them in piles. Literally, if you came into my office or to my home in my work study place, you would see different piles with different ideas scattered around the room. And that's how I was organized. You have to find the one way that works for you in order to accomplish what you need to know. We can give you pointers. The book is full of those. However, you have to pretty much find many of those out on your own. There are many good guides on the internet, though. Secondary sources are okay. What's a secondary source? It's like a textbook that uses a primary source in order to develop ideas. But use those few and far between. Primary sources are your best way in order to identify certain trends. Now, how do you organize a literature review? There's many different ideas. One of the ideas I used when I did my literature reviews, I would put everything that was in support of whatever your hypothesis is in one area, and then I would put everything that wasn't in support of whatever your hypothesis is in another area. And then I would compare and contrast those two ideas, and then finally write a summary section of what both of those ideas were, okay, and how they related to one another. You also want, when you do a literature review, to look for literature that not only supports, but also does not support what your problem area is or what it is that you're trying to do. You need to seek out negative sources so you have some credibility when you present your research to other fellow researchers or scientists, depending on the field that you go into. Um, Most people will give you a break on the literature review when you're just beginning, but as you go up in your research life and you become more and more accomplished, then people are really going to look at your literature review. How many sources should you have? For purposes of task 3, I would recommend that you have at least 5 sources in your review of the literature and try to summarize what they do. Remember, you are not copying. You're not using a whole bunch of quotes in your literature review. You're putting what the author says into your own words and writing some connecting ideas between those words and making it so other people can pretty much understand it. It takes a while to master this technique, and my best suggestion for you is to go and look at other resources on the web in order to how they particularly did this. If we were in class, we could, take our reviews and dissect them piece by piece, but unfortunately we don't have that in an online course. But nevertheless, you still have to learn how to do it. The book talked about quantitative versus qualitative reviews. For the purpose of a study, not a dissertation, for the purposes of a study, they don't differ that much. But purposes of a dissertation or groundbreaking research, a qualitative study will just guide you into what you may see in the field, where a quantitative study has to be pretty exhaustive and present every side of the particular issue in question. Literature reviews are complicated, and most people do not like to do them because it's like writing a paper. Remember, you're just telling the folks what other people have said. You're not making any conclusions in this literature review. It is not a theme paper for you to come up with various themes, okay, and for you to take sides. You merely state what the researchers have found, and you use that and tie that in to why this literature is important for your particular study. It's really quite that simple. Sounds complicated, but after you do it a few times, you'll begin to understand it. In any case, God bless. I hope you have a good week 3, and I'll be posting the video for the next chapter in this module tomorrow.